How we feeling? How we feeling? Welcome back to the collective. Today we're going to be doing a movie review, and we're going to be talking about The Watchers, directed by Ishana Night Shyamalan.
You have 5 seconds before the door is sealed. 5, 4, 3, 2.
This movie's going to be starring Dakota Fanning, and it's also going to have Georgina Campbell in here, who you guys might remember from The Barbarian, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, check that out. But it's actually going to be taking place in Ireland, and it pretty much starts off with how the trailer does. We have Dakota Fanning, who actually works at a pet store and is given the task by her manager to take this parrot to a zoo that's about a day's trip away, and she's going to need to go through the forest in order to get there. So she takes this trip, with it being the 15th anniversary of her mother's passing, so she's pretty much looking for a reason to get away, or run away, for the word she used in the movie. But once this trip gets going, we have her going through the forest, and then her radio starts glitching, and then the car just starts shutting down, and it eventually just completely shut off. So she gets out of the car and takes the parrot and gets to walking through the forest. And since she doesn't see anybody or anything or any houses, she starts to walk back towards the car, but the car ends up being gone. So she gets to walking in the forest again, and it becomes closer to nightfall. And that's when she sees somebody, and she starts chasing after them and yelling for them, calling for help. And they end up getting to this box-like structure with a door. And the lady went in the door, and then she opened it back up and pretty much said, you have 5 seconds to get in if you want to live. And with the noises and things that were running around and the girl was hearing, she had no other choice but to go inside, or she felt like she was going to die to whatever what was out there, because she knew something was out there. But once she got inside the box, there were 3 other people in there, including the old lady, who pretty much knew what their purpose was to be in there, and that was to be watched. The old lady mentioned that there are these watchers outside that like to watch the people inside of the box. Now, how the box is set up, it's like an interview room. One side is a mirror and the other side is see-through glass. So the people inside the box can only see themselves, but the things outside can see them. So when they bring the new girl up to the front, you just hear a bunch of rustling, like things running up to the front of the box. And the old lady said that they were applauding her because she was new. Now, to get into the pros and the cons of this movie, the pros, I would have to say, are the visuals are really good in this movie, because it takes place in a forest, so we get a lot of good nature shots. We get a lot of overhead views of her driving in the forest, a lot of good views of Ireland, the mountainsides, a lot of beautiful stuff. And the sounds too, the rustling of the trees and the leaves of the watchers running around, the shadows of things creeping around in the back, and even the scores were really good. So it really kept with the theme of the movie and, kept it tense. The first about 30 minutes of the movie was really good. It kept you in this mysterious world where you had to keep asking questions in your head because you didn't know what was going on. You didn't know what these watchers were. You didn't know what they wanted. You didn't know why these people were stuck in this box, but they were able to leave when they wanted to, until you got deeper into the movie. Now, other good things I would say about the movie are, I guess, the design of the Watchers itself. That was pretty cool and scary. But other than that, the visuals, the sounds, and the design of the Watchers is all I really had. It was a really big disappointment for me in this movie, and that's what I'm going to tell you guys about in the cons. Now, with the cons, this movie just felt really rushed. It was about an hour, 45 minutes, and you get to know what the Watchers are about maybe 45 to 50 minutes into the movie. And once you realize what they are, it's either going to keep you into it because you're interested, or it's really going to take you out of it. And I was on the side where it took me completely out, because the way they explained it is just like, there was a better way I felt like they could have went about it, especially what the Watchers ended up being. And I felt like that there was a different way that they could have went about explaining who they were, so that it was more mysterious and more creepy, so you still had more questions instead of just being like, oh, that's what they are? Well, why are they doing this? And on top of that, the actors, they were not that good in this movie. Dakota Fanning was pretty good. She did a really good job in her role, and Georgina Campbell did a really good job in her role also. But the other guy that was in the room, and Madeline, the old lady, that she has some pretty familiar roles back in the day, and she was also in Tarot. Their performances just didn't do anything for me, I didn't really feel the fear or the hopelessness in them. And I honestly didn't get that from Dakota or Georgina either, but they have different parts in their roles that kind of make me appreciate or like their characters. But there's some other stuff that happened in this movie where like people take dumb decisions, which always happens in a horror movie, but there's things where like there were rules made that were not supposed to be broken, and when they are broken there's no consequences. Like, these people were not supposed to turn their back to the watchers, they couldn't go outside at nighttime, and they also couldn't enter these big burrows and these holes that the watchers lived in because they didn't come out during the day. And all three rules were broken and there was no consequence for any of them. And I feel like that took away from the movie, because it's like, what couldn't these people do then? And it did get to a point where the watchers did get mad with them for coming out and not doing what they were supposed to do, which was stand in front of that glass. And they tried to tear down the building, and the people end up finding somewhere else to go that you felt like they would have knew about a long time ago, especially with how long they've been into this box. Because when Dakota Fanning first gets there, Georgina Campbell tells her that she's been in there for about 5 months. And as the movie goes on, winter passes, and we learn that Dakota Fanning has been in there for about 6 months, because as she draws on the floor, and about halfway through the movie, the whole floor is pretty much drawn on, except for the part that was hidden that they just found out about later in that movie. So, and I felt like things were rushed when it came to the point of leaving and getting out of the box and getting to the climax of the movie, and especially when they got to the very ending and there were multiple things added on to the ending. It was one of those movies that had about 2 or 3 endings where you thought this was the end and the camera was zooming out, and then it led to another scene, and then you thought that was the ending and then it led to another scene. And honestly, the scenes that kept adding on, it just wasn't necessary. I felt like they could have had that one last scene that they had with the camera zoomed out, and they could have ended it right then and there. It wouldn't have been a great ending, and even the real ending wasn't a great ending for me, but it would have been better than what it was. So with this movie, The Watchers, I'm honestly gonna have to give it 2.5 stars. I really didn't enjoy the story and the concept that they were trying to bring across, especially with how they portrayed everything and how they revealed everything. I feel like if it was done in a different way, that this movie easily could have been a 4-star movie. And the movie really wasn't scary to be put in a horror genre. It had things that were scary and a couple jump scares. And of course, with it being M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, it had a twist, but it didn't bank on the twist. So I would definitely throw that into the pros of the movie, because the twist that ends up happening, it was something that was very predictable, but it didn't bank the whole movie on that twist. So I did appreciate that for sure. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning into the channel and watching this review with me. Be sure to check out our other videos we got on the channel, and we have a Garfield movie review coming out today too, so be sure to check that out. That movie was way better than this one. You guys have a good one.